Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fearless Female Entrepreneurs, where you'll receive expert advice and inspiration from 17 fierce feminine leaders and entrepreneurial experts who want to help you supercharge your power as a feminine thought leader and initiate your own powerful rising. I am your host, Jocelyn Mercado, and today I'm so excited to welcome Stephanie Briggs. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this event. So glad to have you here. So let me just read a little bit from your bio here, Stephanie, for those who don't already know about your work. Stephanie Briggs is a counseling astrologer, life coach, writer, singer, and speaker. Through her business Heart Blossom, she activates, guides, and supports empaths, intuitives, and highly sensitive women to come into greater expression and embodiment of their authentic power. Stephanie started Heart Blossom out of her desire to support people in connecting with and bringing forth the wisdom of their hearts. Her mission is to be an agent of transformation and evolution through a new heart-centered paradigm on Earth. Using a unique blend of astrology, integrative trauma work, spiritual counseling, intuitive energy healing, and other modalities, Stephanie offers a safe and supportive presence for her clients to come out of hiding and share their powerful work with the world. She also loves teaching people how to use astrology and other tools to access their innate wisdom and intuitive abilities. Stephanie draws on her training in body-centered psychotherapy and energy healing, her studies of art, mythology, astrology, and other esoteric arts, as well as her lifelong interest in the human condition and her own journey as a highly sensitive empath. She is guided by the words of Howard Thurman: "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Stephanie says that since she has committed to cultivating and expressing her own aliveness, her life has become infinitely more magical. I love that quote. Thank you for sharing with us, Stephanie.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, so I love the topic of your interview, Find Your Light, How to Come Out of Hiding So You Can Live Your Mission. So could you begin by sharing with us what inspired you to speak about this topic today?
Yeah. So ultimately, it's really inspired by my own journey. Growing up, I was really shy. I was always just kind of this weird kid. I didn't feel like I really related a lot to my peers. And I always was really creative as well. I loved music and drawing and art and making things, and especially singing was my absolute favorite thing. And so I would do a lot of that, like around the house, entertaining my family and stuff like that. But kind of as I got older, I did experience a lot of bullying from my peers, and just like also a lot of pressure to be really good at things, to be perfect, to not make mistakes. And so that started to make it less fun to share my singing or my art. I became aware of like all these standards that existed that I felt like I had to meet, and I felt like I could not meet them, which made me think I just don't even want to try. And I really was just like kind of afraid to be who I was, like ultimately, because I got a lot of feedback from the world around me that who I am, who I was, what I like to do, like there was something about it that wasn't okay or wasn't welcome. And so I really just like went really inward, and I kind of developed, a facade. I learned how to be in a way that made me seem like I could fit in with people. But like really inside, I felt like I was hiding, and I didn't really feel like I was welcome. Like even to take it to an extreme, like I didn't really feel like I was welcome here on Earth. And so I kind of just went along trying to fit into the molds that I thought was given to me. And I did okay with it. I kind of went through school. I went into this corporate job, and I was succeeding in terms of like, worldly values, but I really wasn't happy. And I still kept thinking like, all I want to do is sing. All I want to do is talk to people. I love learning about people and psychology. And all these different ways of understanding the world, and I wanted to share it with people. And I just really wanted to like let my real self out. And it was really, really scary for a long time. But eventually, like, you know, I started making some connections with people who were really supportive, encouraging, and finding some opportunities to try, to try being a little vulnerable and coming out of hiding, like just being myself. And I actually found that that worked a lot better for me. When I'm real with people, when I'm just me, instead of trying to put on this character that I think they'll like, people actually like the real me a lot better. It's like funny like that. You know, so it kind of like what I always was trying to achieve, you know, just feeling comfortable, having friends, having work that I love, getting to share my creativity, like all that stuff actually required me to stop hiding and stop being fake and stop like playing this role. And actually, like when I was just me, I got all of those things. And so I just think that this is actually, you know, this is my personal story, but it's so common. It's so common, especially for women, and especially for women who are highly sensitive or empathic, or creative. You know, there's so much messaging we get about, you know, what's wrong with us or how we're supposed to be. And so we learn to hide and stay small and hold back. And, you know, I see this with my clients all the time. You know, they're all these amazing women, they're intuitive, they're empathic, they're creative, they have like these powerful voices and powerful message that they're here to share with the world. And yet a lot of times they're afraid to do that. They're holding back. And even sometimes also in their relationships, in their friendships and with people they're close to, you know, they're struggling at times to show up with all of who they are. And that does take a lot of courage, but I really think that ultimately we are here on earth to be ourselves and to use the gifts that we have and the skills and the talents. And the world really needs us like more than ever to show up and do this. You know, my sense is that we all have a mission of some kind. You know, they vary, but you know, those of us who are called to be entrepreneurs, who are called to share our own work with the world, we really have to show up and come out of hiding. So I see this as an area where people need support, and I feel like I have some insight to share. So I'm excited to say more about that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing all of this up. And I think it's so important to acknowledge, first of all, that, you know, all of us in this westernized culture have been receiving messages since the moment we were born, right? About what is good versus bad and what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And especially as girls and women, we've been really receiving these messages that, you know, in many cases have told us to hide who we really are. So, and yes, I just couldn't agree more wholeheartedly with the fact that at this time right now, we need to be able to step beyond all that, to see that as lies and illusions, and just be who we really are and bring our gifts. So yeah, so important. Well, can you tell us a little bit more? So what's at the root of this pattern, and why are so many of us hiding in the first place?
Yeah. So as I kind of touched on, and as you just mentioned, it's really rooted in like this programming that we have from past experiences in our lives. That includes experiences we had in our family growing up, as well as all these messages that you mentioned that we get from just the society that we live in, from our culture and everything, you know, in school, at work, every interaction we have. We're kind of operating in this larger cultural context, and it really influences everything. So for women in particular, we're socialized in a certain way. We're socialized to be small, to be quiet, to be pretty. You know, we're supposed to care for other people, do stuff for others. We end up being very other focused a lot of times. And then also, you know, this culture that we're in, a culture of white supremacy, of capitalism, of patriarchy, like all these power over paradigms and expressions of that we're in, where if I have power, that means that that you don't have power. Like there's not enough power to go around. That's a lie. But, you know, this has informed everything that we do. And this paradigm also does not value or welcome our full, real, like powerful humanity. You know, like with all the imperfections that we have, you know, we're kind of like supposed to be these perfect machines who are productive, and we don't make mistakes, and we don't need anything, and we just keep churning out more and more and more. Well, that's like not real. So, you know, this can seem like, oh, it's just a concept, but this really like impacts us even on a physical level. Like these, this programming is living in us, like in our bodies. You know, one example is like, I recently saw this article, and it was talking about a study that they did on Alzheimer's. And what they found is that women actually have more brain activity than men do. And including in the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of executive functions like focus and impulse control. And this article was theorizing that this is partly, you know, related to women, generally speaking, how we're socialized to have empathy and capacity to collaborate, as well as self-control. And, you know, I personally believe that this is so much, you know, a result of, you know, if we're saying nature versus nurture, like I would say this is a nurture thing. I think all humans have the capacity for these, you know, for these functions, but for women, for girls, like we're really encouraged to develop them, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, we can kind of get stuck in that side. And then again, like we're not like centered in our own experience. You know, and as children, we're always learning. Our earliest experiences in life really shape our worldview. And so whatever that experience is like whatever we're met with in our families, with people who are caring for us, whether that's our parents, caregivers, teachers, if we are met with a lack of support for our being fully alive as authentic, creative beings, we really like learn that it's not safe or okay to be who we are. You know, if we're not mirrored, like empaths in particular, or people who are highly sensitive to emotional energy, very early on, we are reading people and we're attuning to them. So oftentimes empaths growing up will be, you know, what's called parentified children, which means that you're emotionally caretaking your parents on some level. They are not mirroring you, you are mirroring them, which is actually not the way that it's meant to be for children to develop, you know, in their ideal process. Now, this is not to say that parents are, you know, these are bad parents. Like, you know, I think consciousness is continually evolving, and with every generation, there's more consciousness. And so our parents' generation, they just didn't have as much consciousness around these issues. Now they are responsible for the impact of their behavior, but at the same time, it's not about blaming. It's more just about having an awareness of what this is, what's going on, and where did it come from, so that we can work with it more skillfully. And so as a result of these experiences, you know, we learn to suppress certain parts of ourselves in order to survive. And this actually happens in the body, through these tension patterns that we develop that limit and direct the flow of energy in our body. So one example that I can give to help you kind of understand this more is like, imagine that you're at a meeting. You're at like a serious business meeting, and for whatever reason, you suddenly get the urge to laugh. Now, how do you stop yourself from laughing? Because this is not an appropriate time to be laughing, right? Well, you tense your body, right? So imagine how that feels in your body, and you can understand how this works. And it becomes automatic, especially when, you know, from what we've learned in our early years, the first few years of our lives, you know, our spirit knows what to do to survive in whatever circumstances we're in. But then as we grow up, this becomes like an ingrained pattern. It becomes something that we're not even aware of. And so part of our task is to become more aware of it. And that's when we're able to shift it. Now, specifically with this question of hiding, you know, on an energetic level, that means like energetically we are small. You could say like we're kind of avoiding detection. We're like under the radar, and that feels safer because there's some fear about what is going to happen to me if they see me, if they hear me, if they know who I really am. So sometimes this is like, I'm not good enough. If they see me, they're going to criticize, or they're going to laugh at me, or I'm going to make a mistake and it's going to be humiliating. And so that can lead to like patterns of perfectionism, of like, I have to do it just perfect. And until it's perfect, I'm not going to let anyone see. Well, just a little secret that I'll let you in on, it's like never going to be perfect. Another one is like just a sense of shame of like, well, what I have to offer isn't valuable, or like nobody cares anyway. Nobody's going to pay attention to me. You know, if you, as a kid, if parents weren't around, nobody was there to like go to your piano recital, or hear, you know, take a look at the drawing you made, or hear the story you wrote. Like that makes an impact, and that sends a message that stays with us. There can be fear of abandonment. Like perhaps I have a lot of talent, or I have a lot of power, or I'm very successful, and that actually makes other people uncomfortable. Maybe they don't like what I'm doing. They think there's something wrong with it. It doesn't fit with their ideas of how you should be. Or maybe it makes them uncomfortable because it reminds them of what they'd like to be doing that they're not showing up and doing. And so a lot of times that can lead to people kind of on some level, like trying to take us down, because us and our power can make them feel the sense of how they're not in their power. And this can even happen again when you're a kid. You know, if a kid's like out there dancing and having a good time, and the parent is like, well, I don't get to behave that way, or I didn't get to when I was a kid. So on some level, the parent has this idea that like, that's not okay. And that will impact the child. Even if they don't come out and say it directly, on an energetic level, that message is still coming through. And then another one, you know, that I've really been grappling with sometimes is like, again, when you show your power, so if your power is being creative, and people like what you're showing, they want what you have to offer, you get all this attention, and then it can sometimes feel like, whoa, this is too much attention. These people want something from me. It can feel like a sense of obligation. And then ultimately it's a question of, how do I enforce my boundaries? And so, you know, also with these patterns, especially for empaths, like boundaries can be challenging, and that can be something that we really have to work on as well. So showing up and being visible can then bring up this other issue that then it's like, whoa, this is too much right now. I'm just gonna come back into the shell. So like, those are some of the different ways. And, you know, obviously it's different for everybody, but, you know, basically it's like, at the root of this is fear. And what I'm seeing is that oftentimes this is like an old fear, which is good because it means that we have the opportunity to change it.
Yeah. Wow. Very powerful. Thank you for giving those examples. I know I can identify so strongly with some of those. I'm sure everybody listening, you know, heard some things there that they really, really can identify with. Well, can you tell us next, relating this to our audience of entrepreneurs here, why is this such an important issue, something so important to look at for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Well, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to get bigger and take up more space with yourself and with others. Like it's really all about you, right? Like you are creating your business, you're in charge. And there's a lot of risks that are just involved in being an entrepreneur, because it's really uncertain sometimes. Like you have this idea, you have something you want to do, and you don't know what's going to happen when you bring it out into the world. Like, it's like, does anybody want this? Am I really good at this? Like, can I make enough money? Like, there's so many doubts and so many fears. And really, so what I want to say is like, the fear isn't necessarily going to go away, but it really requires you to show up and do it anyway. And the thing is, like, hiding in particular is really a barrier to success, because you have to show up and you have to be able to tell people who you are and what you do. Like, if you don't feel comfortable with yourself, how are you going to do that? Especially if you're if you're a healer, if you're a writer, if you're a creative, like basically like you are the business, like you're the product, it's all about you. And so when you're trying to hide, you're really kind of like keeping yourself in a box that probably feels really safe and familiar, but like, do you want to stay there? Like, what are you going to be able to do if, for example, you don't want anybody to see your picture, or if you don't like the sound of your voice, or you're afraid to be on video, for example, or whatever that may be. Like, if you have these limitations of I can't do X, Y, and Z because I'm afraid for people to see me or people to hear me, you're not going to do those things. And there's then a limit on how you can grow in your business and also the impact that you can make, right? Because in order for people whose work, your work is meant to serve, if they can't find you, if they can't see you, you cannot serve them. So, I think that's really important, and just want to emphasize that I really think that being an entrepreneur is like the best possible way to develop yourself as a person. It's really like a growth path, because it brings up all this stuff, all the insecurities, all the fears and the doubts and like the patterns that are no longer serving. So, it can feel like a problem of like, I'm afraid to be visible. I'm afraid, to be really out here. But actually, if you're willing to work with it, like there's a lot of power there, and it can unfolds like way beyond what you can even imagine ahead of time. It's like actually amazing. and it will impact more than just your business, because really like how you're showing up in your business is typically not really different from how you're showing up in your life as a whole. There's usually some underlying pattern or energy that's tying it all in.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. And when we step into this journey of entrepreneurship, you can't step into that without going on into a huge deep dive into your own personal development. You just, the two things, they have to go together. They have to be happening at the same time. That's the only way your business is going to grow, is for you to grow. And the only way for you to grow is for your business to grow, if that's all, if that's a part of it for you. So, there's a speaker named Lisa Nichols. She's really, really brilliant. And she says, this is like paraphrasing, but she says something like, what is your biggest goal? And if that goal doesn't make your knees knock and doesn't make make you shake with fear, then it's not big enough yet, So it's about really, really stepping into the fullness of who we are. And that is pretty much always outside of our comfort zone, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of things in my business that I never thought I could do. And they were really scary, but once I did them, I felt so much more confident. And it was like, okay, what's next? So, sometimes I just want to say like, just do it. Yeah.
So for the women who are listening, for anyone who is struggling with this, with being visible, or if you're kind of stuck in a place where you're playing a little bit too small, what can we do about it? How can we expand our capacity to really be seen and self-express?
Yeah, it's so important. So I want to share a poem that I love. It's by the Persian poet Hafez. And it says, how did the rose ever open her heart and give to this world all her beauty? She felt the encouragement of light against her being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. And when I heard this poem, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, it's so true. Like imagine this, this little seed and it needs the sunlight, right? And in order to grow and to blossom, and how much beauty is available when the flower blooms, right? And so we kind of all need this sunlight and this support. And at the same time, we're in light when we become visible. So finding your light is about both finding that light of love to support you, but also finding like the place where you're meant to shine. So as far as how we can do this, the first step is really, you have to be willing. You have to be willing to tolerate uncertainty, discomfort, and you have to be willing to take risks and to take action. And so if that willingness is there, great. If it's not there, then maybe that's something to look into. Why am I not willing? What would I need in order to be willing? Because really there's no point in trying to do something that you don't actually want to do. And so if the willingness is there, then there's a few key ingredients as I see it, to kind of like work through this process. And the key ingredients are safety and support. And this is all about overwriting kind of this old experience and this old worldview that we have of, it's not safe to let people see me. So this is really like a gradual process. So you're going to start where you are and you're going to keep expanding, like step by step. Because if you think of like the end goal, like let's say I want to give a TED talk, and right now I'm afraid to even make a video of me. Well, you're not going to then tomorrow just make a TED talk, right? Like there's all these steps along the way. So it's really like just getting started and taking those steps. So how can we develop safety? The first thing is to realize that a lot of times it's really like an internal experience. It's internally generated, which is actually a good thing, because that means that you have the ability to influence it and to work with it and to change it. So I would start by seeing it and naming it. Like, I don't feel safe when blank, or I don't feel safe singing in front of people, or whatever it is. Like, what is it where do you not feel safe? And then really like exploring what the stories are that you have about why you're not safe. What's going to happen if you do this thing that doesn't feel safe? And oftentimes what it is that you fear, and especially when it comes to other people, you're afraid other people are going to do blah, blah, blah. Usually what you fear from others is actually what you're currently doing to yourself. It's at least as far as your self-talk. So I'm afraid other people are going to criticize me. And so right now I'm actually criticizing myself and pointing out all the things that are wrong with what I'm doing. And those are reasons why I shouldn't let anyone see. So if you stop and if you can stop and notice that, it's like, oh, actually, it's like the call is coming from inside the house. Yeah. And like, it's a process. But really it's like, there's so much power there. So really it's like, how can you explore, like, what are the stories that you have about people who are visible, people who are in the spotlight, people who are getting attention, people who are seeking attention? Do you have stories about something about that? Is there something bad about that? And, because if you have a belief that it's bad or it's selfish or egotistical or whatever that may be, then of course you're not going to want to do that. You don't want to be bad. And so the safety thing, it can be hard. If you experienced a lot of trauma in your life, it can be really hard to connect with a sense of safety, because maybe you haven't really experienced that. So it's really helpful to connect with sources of love and support that can help you develop this sense of safety and really like have a connection so that you're not alone in it. So you can really start with yourself and expand from there. So I would start by developing what I would call internal supports. So that's like, how can you create more support within your own psyche, within your own system as a human, so that I don't have to go to some other person to get this support? Like, what do I have within me? So I really like to suggest, working with imagery. If I close my eyes and try to imagine a place that feels safe, like, what does that look like? Where is that place? How does it feel? And can I like start visiting that? Can I maybe once a week, I'm going to just do a meditation and go spend some time in this safe place? Or maybe I'm connecting with spirit guides or animal guides, or even like trees. Like, I had a tree at the park that I used to hang out with, like, you know, not in my mind's eye, but I would actually go to the park and spend time with this tree, and really like developed what I would call a relationship with this tree. It just started to feel safe there. And eventually I kind of internalized this felt sense of safety with the tree. And now the tree, like, I would call it one of my guides. So if I'm having a tough moment, I can take a moment to breathe. That's always good as well. And just like imagine this tree, and it immediately creates a feeling of love and safety and warmth within me. Now you could say, well, that's not even real. Like, how do you know that you're really connecting with the tree? And my answer to that is, does it even matter? Like, if it shifts my energy into a better place, like, to me, that's what I'm trying to do. So it doesn't matter if it's real or not. One thing in particular as well, it can be really helpful to connect with good archetypes of good parents, and especially like an archetype of a good mother, the archetypal mother. So we could say Mother Earth. Some people know her as Mary. You know, there are all many different names for her, but it's really this like universal mother who can hold us in any experience. Like, she can hold the whole earth, and she's really like available to all of us. And so I always want to mention this. And in particular, there's a book that I really recommend for anyone who's wanting to connect more specifically with this mothering energy. And this book is called Untie the Strong Woman, and it's by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And it's absolutely amazing, transformational, made a huge impact for me and other women I know as well. So just a side note with that. But then also, so, you know, we're developing these supports and this more sense of safety and love within ourselves. And then also taking action, like I said. So really you have to practice. You can start practicing with close friends, with people who feel safe to you, or maybe you're in some kind of group program. That's a place, like, start taking small risks in a place that feels relatively safe. Maybe you're still scared, but, you know, or if you're already established in your business, and let's say, you know, you're on a baseline level, but you want to take that next step, it's like, how can you just, it's really like just for having the courage to try it. And the more you do it, the more you practice, you're creating a new experience, like even in your body, of like, wow, I thought that, you know, when I did this, something really bad was going to happen, and I did it, and actually nothing bad happened, or I did it and everybody loved it. And so like when you do that over time, it really creates like a new experience and really just supports you to continue expanding. Like, this was so huge for me. You know, I really had a lot of stage fright about singing, which is like one of like my absolute favorite thing to do in life. And I wanted to share it with people, but I was really scared. And, you know, I just kept showing up anyway. I just kept showing up for the gigs and doing it. And like over time, I got comfortable, and like, I don't really get nervous anymore on stage, which I never thought would have been possible. And so like, you know, this is not easy. You know, doing these practices, taking risks, like really putting yourself out there. Like, there is no magic, you know, flip a switch and now you're just there. But the magic is the power of you showing up and doing it. It's you applying your energy, of you saying like, I'm going to do this. And it's really helpful, especially for me, like, and I think for others, to remember why you are doing this. What is it that you want? What's possible? Like, what are you working toward? What's your dream? What does your heart secretly or not so secretly want to share with the world? Like, and how much do you care about that? And what are you willing to do in order to show up and share this gift with the world? Because again, I think whatever it is that your heart wants, like, I really just want to encourage you to trust that and to know that it means something. And it's more powerful than you will even know.
I just love what you've shared there, and especially those questions at the end. Really, really powerful. And that idea of, you know, creating a whole new experience for ourselves, doing something that is probably scary, but yeah, once you do it and you see that it's possible, it's amazing. You're on the other side of it, right? And then you can go to all the other levels. It's really, really a beautiful recommendation. Yeah. Well, so I know that astrology is an important part of your work too. So how does astrology fit into all of this? How can we look to the stars to help us know how to be more visible?
Yeah, well, I love astrology because it's just such a powerful tool for exploring and orienting ourselves to the energetic conditions and cycles of our world. And that includes both our inner world and our outer world. Um, and so, for me personally, and this is what I work with my clients, is like really our birth charts in particular have so much information to share about who we are and what our gifts are, as well as our struggles, but also like what we're here to do, like what our mission is, like what we're learning while we're here in this lifetime. And I find that it's tremendously validating. And again, like for those of us who didn't get mirrored as kids or who don't see ourselves, fitting in with the mainstream, or for whatever reason, like that validation is also like a powerful support of, I see myself or somebody sees me. It's like another experience of being visible, right? But like in a safe context. And in particular, also the chart will show, areas of struggle, and it will even show a lot of times struggle around visibility. So some of the ways that I see this showing up in the chart is like, if you have, for example, Virgo rising, which is my rising sign, Scorpio rising also, or if you have Mercury, the planet of the mind, or the sun, the planet of your identity, of who you are. If you have those in the 12th house, which is the area of your chart that is kind of hidden or harder to express. Or if you have these planets or these points, if they're under stress in your chart, so they're in a challenging aspect to planets like Pluto or Saturn or Chiron. This can be a bit technical, but if you know your chart, like these are some indications that, that this is perhaps like a bigger challenge in your life. And so I just want to say also that if it feels hard, if it feels like, God, why am I struggling with this so much? Like that could be a big part of your journey, actually. So it's not something to feel like I'm cursed or gosh, why do I have to deal with this? Like it's really it's part of the experience. Pluto in particular, when you see it in the chart, it tends to cast a shadow over what it touches in the chart. But the thing is that it's ultimately all about transformation. And so when you bring the light of awareness, of consciousness, to this area that has been in the shadows, it actually transforms. And then it becomes even more powerful than it would have been had you not had to work for it. Like there's that whole story about the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, and how somebody saw this butterfly trying to hatch, and they tried to help the butterfly out, and they kind of like helped it along. And when it came out, it actually couldn't fly away, because the process of struggling to get out of the cocoon is what actually strengthened its wings enough to be able to fly. So trust that the struggle is totally part of it, and is not an indication that you can't do it. And when you have struggled and you have gotten to that other side, you're going to feel so much stronger, and that's just going to keep propelling you forward. Now, as far as the current environment, astrologically speaking, we're coming off last month on January 20th or 21st, depending where you're located. We had a Leo total lunar eclipse. So lunar eclipse is a full moon, kind of some people say like a full moon on steroids. And, eclipse season is like when it's like an evolutionary checkpoint. There's usually a lot of growth happening, important events happen, like you could see like turning points, and they may be not apparent at the time. Sometimes they only become obvious when you're looking back, but it's a time of enhanced growth and evolution. And so we had this eclipse in Leo, which is really all about being visible, being in the spotlight, being yourself, and like your authentic self-expression of your creativity, of your gifts, of who you are. And it's like the joy of that. Like if you imagine a little kid who's like so excited to show you, like, look at the dance that I can do, or like, look at this thing that I made. And they're just excited, like they're happy and they want to share it. And so that's like the energy of Leo. And so with this full moon, like there's a way that it was illuminating something about our gifts, and also just like a call to step forward and to share them more. Because again, you're not meant to hoard your gifts. You're not meant to hide them. That doesn't help anybody. There's actually no virtue in hiding, in my opinion. And so that's where it brings us to more of the current astrology. So on February 19th, it was a full moon in the sign of Virgo, which is an earth sign. But this sign tends to be, an archetype that's more shy, more introverted, kind of tends to be modest, a little bit analytical maybe in your head. And on the shadow side, like, some of the challenges can be like a lot of perfectionism, or like over-analysis, or like, again, just like hiding, not wanting to be in the spotlight. But also there's the theme of service, and like, how are we serving? What's the impact that we're making? And so I see these two events together as really like showing us like, we need to be visible, and that's part of how we're serving. That's how we're going to carry out our mission, whatever that may be. So part of my mission is to reach, people like me, our entrepreneurs, or people who are creative, or people who are healers, or who have a message, who have a powerful voice or something they want to share, like to help them get it out there. And so for me to do that, I have to be visible too. I have to walk my talk. And so, with this full moon that we've just had on the 19th, there's also like a lot of divine inspiration and support available with Mercury in a conjunction to Neptune in the sign of Pisces, as well as there's like a lot of energy for liberation, like breaking free of these old paradigms, of like all this old conditioning, and really like making radical changes to express yourself in the world and show up and like share your gifts. Like it's time. And really like also, there's an aspect pattern with the planet Uranus, which is this liberatory energy, in an aspect with the lunar nodes, which are all about our overall evolution. So we're moving from the south lunar node in Capricorn, which is like all this structure, all this achievement focus. You have to be just so. It's not a lot of room for heart, at least in this, the toxic side of it, which is what we're working through. And we're moving toward the Cancer North Node, which is all about this sense of safety, home, love, nurturing, connection, like really heart-centered leadership. As well as like the asteroid Pallas Athena is also in the mix, which is this archetype of female wit and wisdom and leadership. And so we're really like living into this new paradigm right now. And it really does start right now. It's not going to just fall out of the sky, like fully formed. Like we're all creating it on a day-to-day basis through the choices that we make and the action that we take and how we're willing to show up. And so I just want to challenge all those who are listening to be willing to take action that scares you, that's in service of what you truly care about and the impact that you want to make. And I really just want to like encourage you, because it's such an amazing journey, and like beyond anything that you can imagine. And in my experience, when you do show up in this way, when you're willing to take a courageous step, take a risk, like you will be met with support. Like things will just fall into place, not that you don't have to do work, but I really feel like there's a reward there, as well as just like the incredible fulfillment of doing what you're meant to do. It's such an amazing feeling. I would never, ever, ever go back to hiding, ever. So I just want everybody out there to shine their light, like your light matters and we need you. And everybody, like when you can show up and share that, you're creating space for other people to do the same. And so ultimately we're just going to have more gifts and more light and more talents and more love. And just like, why wouldn't we want that?
Yes. I love it. Love what you have shared here. Thank you for the astrological insights. It's so wonderful to know that we're so supported right now, right? By
Mm-hmm.
all the energies, all the forces at work, to come out of hiding and to shine our light, as you're saying. Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. It's really, really wonderful what you're sharing here. And so I want to say that, you know, for everyone who's listening, if you would love to get more insights from Stephanie on your specific situation, go and check out her free gift. Stephanie, would you like to say a few words about your you're offering more than one amazing free gift.
Yeah. So I'm offering 5 people a chance to win a soul session with me, which is my birth chart astrology reading. And this is really like a deep dive into your birth chart. So we'll talk about, you know, the basics like your sun and your moon and your rising sign, as well as like kind of your overall evolutionary path in this lifetime. Like we'll get some insight into what is your mission and what is your power and what are you here to do? And like, what are the challenges? And I just love doing these sessions. They're so amazing. And everybody really, truly does have something to share. And so I'm excited to meet 5 people who are out there watching right now. So I would encourage you to enter into that. And also, if you don't win, you will still get a $50 off coupon. And I'm also giving away a little mini guide that I created called Claim Your Superpower. And this is a little guide to the power of your star sign and like what's special about you. So you will get a download of that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for all of these beautiful, generous gifts. And so for those who would like to claim those gifts, go ahead right now. And if you scroll down just a little bit below this video, you'll see the link to click on to go and claim Stephanie's gifts. And also, Stephanie, you are offering a bonus gift in addition to those for people who purchase the unlimited lifetime access to the full set of interviews from fearless female entrepreneurs. And that is full access to your Feminine Emergence Summit, which you recently did. And that's about the power of women to activate our global collective evolution. And I just love that. It's so relevant to all that we're talking about here with 18 amazing experts that you interviewed there. So thank you so much for offering that additional gift.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, this has been so wonderful talking with you today, Stephanie. Thank you for your time and for joining us in this event. I'm just so glad to have heard all of this from you and have you sharing this with our audience. It's really wonderful and inspiring. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It was just such a joy to be here.
Wonderful. Have a great day.